Hey ho people, it's Stylosa and Kirioth, and good lord, welcome to Game Show. Now you might have noticed we don't actually have our webcams on. Now there is a reason for this. It's because we are waiting for lights to turn up. Because when we've got lighting, we can then both have an absolutely super pure chroma key setup, which then means we can superimpose ourselves onto the clip. Now this is much better than stupid boxes in the bottom corner. And to be quite frank, I also look like total shit today, so it gives me a good excuse not to turn the fucking webcam on.
I was really hoping that you were going to say that because I ain't shaved for like a week and a half now and I look like a fucking hobo.
Well, no, in fairness, I had a shave yesterday.
I don't want people to see it. It looks like I've been living on the street.
In the ghetto, a grown baby child is born. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about is the Guild Wars 2. We're going to talk about looking forward to the launch of Guild Wars 2. Now, Beta Weekend 3 has just finished, which is the final Beta Weekend. So I think now is a good time to sort of talk about our experiences with kind of all the betas and also like where we think the game's going to go and you know, and all that stuff. So, what a poor introduction, but whatever. Do I look like I care? No. You can't even see because I don't even have a webcam.
That's how little you care. That's.
I don't even care. I'm not even on the screen. Right, so we've got notes here. We're all, yeah, listen, all professional. So, the first thing I want to talk to you about, Mr. Kirioth, is the new races. So there was Sylvari and Azura. 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 For some reason, it's quite difficult for me to say that race's name. Azura.
It makes you sound dead posh.
Azura. Yeah, so I was playing the Azura. Good lord, one day I'll travel here. They were introduced anyway, these two races, so they're previously unplayable. Now, the Sylvari are a brand new race to Guild Wars 2, so they're like these crazy tree people. Now, there was a big bit of fuss about how are they actually going to introduce the Sylvari into the game, because they're not a Guild Wars race, they're new. So they attempted to do this in the intro cinematic, which I believe, sir, consisted of 25 years ago or something like that, right? The pale tree, which is the tree all the Sylvari spawn from, started spawning Sylvari. And that was literally it. And I thought, well, that's quite a poor attempt at getting a new race into the story. Surely you could have come up with something a bit more, you know, dramatic. I don't know.
It's not very dramatic. It is quite no nonsense, isn't it? There was a tree, and then the tree made people, and now they are here. Go away.
One thing I found quite worrying or strange is there's a male Sylvari, and he's looking for his love. Now, while I understand he could fully well be in love with other people, but surely, sir, it comes down to one fundamental biological process as to why people even bother with this stuff, right? That is to reproduce, sir. Now, when you don't actually reproduce because you're a tree, and in fact you're all spawned from one big tree, right? What is the point of that? It's like, what? I was there and I'm like, hey, what the hell? But anyway, their start was actually quite good, the Sylvari. You're like in a dream, or the dream, I think they even called it, and it's been invaded by nightmares, so you have to fight off the nightmares. You don't realise that you're not yet born, and then you become born into the world, and obviously you're coming to fight the evil, the filthy evil that's going to wash over the world of Tyria, I think it's called, wherever Guild Wars 2 is set. And it's like, well, okay, it's quite a good story start, that is, you know, it throws you straight in. You know, then you spawn, you do the event, blah blah blah. It's great, whatever. Now, I actually played a thief. Now, I hadn't played a thief before in any of the other beta weekends. I'd actually been playing a guardian throughout the whole beta. I think he was like level 34 or something. But obviously, with the final beta weekend, all the characters were wiped, so I didn't have access to him. So obviously, you know, I was forced to start again. But I wasn't really that bothered anyway. I wanted to check out the new races. So yeah, it didn't really bother me. But the thief class is like, I mean, I was trying to explain this to Kirioth before we started recording this clip, and it's like, it's sort of everything you would imagine an actual rogue character in like another MMO to actually play like. You know, it's like really mobile. The animations look really good. It feels like kind of makes me sick using these terms, but it feels visceral. You know, it really does. It's like, oh god, like you really feel like you're stabbing somebody in the head. It's like, oh yeah. It was quite mad, and it just felt. It felt like it really worked. Like it was a really, you know, a really good class to be playing.
See, I haven't tried the Thief yet because I was sort of. My original thought was I wanted to try a Mesmer when the game actually releases. I was really keen on the idea of a Mesmer, but when you told me about the Thief, I used to play a rogue in World of Warcraft, and my favourite tree was the Shadow Step tree. And I really
get Shadow
liked
Step. You get Shadow Step straight away. It's your F1 ability, where you can steal an ability off an enemy or another player, and you actually Shadow Step towards them, rob an ability off them, then you can fire their ability back at them. But yeah, Shadow Step's involved.
So that sounds perfect. So I ended up looking at various clips on YouTube and on the official site, and I was watching it. I was thinking, you know what? If the rogue in Warcraft actually played like the Thief looks like they play in Guild Wars 2, I don't think I'd have ever stopped playing him because it looks mad. Because it's like jumping around from enemy to enemy and sort of spinning behind them and stabbing them and then disappearing, and it looked insane.
I mean,
so
I can't remember.
I'm tall.
I can't remember the name of the actual abilities, but I mean, the combat would sort of go like this. I mean, this is at like level 3 or level 4 combat. I'd close the distance with one of the abilities, so I'd like jump forward and slash a monster. I'd probably auto attack him. Then I'd use, again, I can't remember the name of it, but what it would actually do would it would backflip me over the target, right? And so I could hit him in the back, so you know, obviously do more damage. But it looks so good. It's like, what the hell? One of the other abilities I had at the time, because I was dual wielding daggers, I could throw a dagger like into their legs and it'd slow them down, so obviously they couldn't escape. But the animation on this was so good. The dagger, like, she sort of, I was playing the Sylvari female, she'd throw it up in the air, like do a little trick with it, and then throw it at him. It looked dead good. It was like, oh. I mean, of course, it did no damage because it was just a slow, but it looked good, so I'm like spamming it all the time. Totally needless points. It's like, yes, chuck my dagger. I mean, I'm even doing it now. If I have my webcam on, you can see I'm leaning backwards and pretending I'm throwing a dagger, which is like crazy. But anyway, let's come away from just talking about one bloody class. So the next thing is I went and started an Azura engineer. Now, this is kind of the profession race combo. I think that fits them the most, obviously, because they're, you know, super genius, mega intellects, you know, the most intelligent things on the planet and all this crap. So engineer is kind of fitting, you know, let's go and invent some stuff, although let's face it, engineer is just running around with guns and shooting stuff, not much inventing going on, but whatever. Now this was like, this is the first time in a long time I felt like I sort of got a bit lost in the world. Now this hasn't happened to me for a long time. I think realistically the last time this happened was probably with Skyrim, and even then it didn't really last that long, but I sort of got involved in that game world. Obviously going way back when I used to play EverQuest 2 quite a lot, I was obviously quite involved in that game world at the time, but I sort of had the same feeling, like it felt like I was part of a world, and everything I was doing sort of felt natural. It looked really impressive. Their start area is really good. You know, there's a lot of unique things that you can do. There's a little like golem robotic chess game you can actually take part in. Yeah, okay, it's the mechanics of it are pretty dire, but it's funky that it's there. It's like, oh, that's new. There was also other quests where you could deploy turrets, like defensive turrets, and put landmines down. You had to protect the lab and all this kind of mad stuff. And it was like really well done, and also like the feeling of the area. You felt like they were, you know, these Azura are like little crazy mad scientists, you know, they're working on the most ridiculous things you've ever seen in your life, but it didn't feel cheesy. Now, if you go and look at things like gnomes in World of Warcraft, to me, they are cheesy as hell. Like, I never liked them at all. They were just like really cheesy, and it's like cringe-worthy. But for some reason, these Azura feel a lot more realistic's not the word, but they sort of feel like I don't know. I don't really know how to explain.
It feels like, to me, it feels like it fits. I don't know why. It's like for the gnomes in WoW, it was because it was massively overdone. Everything was like, oh yeah, they're genius. Look at all the giant robots they've created. But everything was like out of scale and seemed a bit kind of, you know, cobbled together to make it look cartoony. Which is, I mean, it's probably the fault of the graphics engine more than anything. But in Guild Wars 2, I have to admit, I made an Azura character and wandered around a bit and had a look at the starting area of the city. And whilst I don't actually like the race itself, because it's ugly as all hell. Although the animations are ridiculously good. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You've got this ugly little bastard doing amazing looking things. It's like, what?
Yeah, they look like gremlins.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But it's like, but the city and the start area and stuff, I kind of feel like I'm in almost like a steampunk kind of Tron world because of all the lights in the walls and like the weird strip lighting and stuff like that. It just kind of, it looks like they have created it as opposed to a race was made and then something was made to fit the race. That's the only way I can put it. It looks like it fits them. It's a proper match, but I'm just going to struggle with them, to be honest, because they're so bloody small. And every time I look at it, it's like,
I got a funny tale. I'm standing in the middle of what's it called? Rata Sum, I think it's called, their city. It's like this massive. It's like a massive Rubik's cube. It's just a massive cube. But the scale of it's totally ridiculous. Anyway, I'm in there and I'm just minding my own business. In fact, I was looking in my inventory, right, messing about. A char, I think it was a char engineer, I think it was, like, ran past me, stopped and turned around and probably thought, well, what's going on here? But then I could see he was literally measuring himself, like, against me. And I'm not joking. I must have been the size of his hand. It was like this giant on the screen. I was like, holy shit. It looked crazy. Like, that sense of scale was quite well done as well, because, I mean, when I was playing my character, my Azura, it felt like he was quite big on the screen, you know, because obviously you can zoom in and you can zoom out pretty far now. They've kind of fixed that from the previous betas. It didn't feel like he was this little dot on the screen, whereas like a gnome in World of Warcraft can feel like that, you know, it just feels like a goddamn dot, like there's nothing there. It felt like he was quite big. But when I was standing next to this chart, it just made me laugh. I'm like, this is crazy, because I can imagine the way this is going to go when the game launches, because I'm probably going to make an Azura character just because I like the... Like, admittedly, the race does look kind of a bit dumb and a bit stupid, but everything else about them is really good. Whereas, like, the chart, like, they typical warfare race, you know, they were just going to kill everybody and all this crap. You know what you're going to get with them. But the models... I mean, I do like the models as well. But, like, I can see you playing a chart and me playing the little Azura guy. It would look crazy.
I see, actually...
This little fella.
I did like Char in the first... When I hit the first beta weekend and just spent like 20 hours on it or whatever it was. And I did like the Char, but actually, I have to say I really like the look of the new race, the Sylvari.
The females, I think... Yeah.
There's something about them. I mean, I don't know whether it's the proportions or the way or just the way they've sort of combined the kind of like the tree aspect of them into the model, but they seem more interesting. Because I mean, the Char are pretty one-dimensional, aren't they? It's just, here is a Char, he kills things, and that's a Char. That's the whole thing. It's like, even in your storyline, it pretty much just revolves around, hello, I'm going to kill you and take your place. Okay, fine, see you later. That's it, that's the whole thing. And it's a bit one-dimensional, but I think it kind of gets a little bit old, because it's a bit sort of, everything's gruff and violent. And yeah. Whereas I might not particularly like the look of the Azura, but them and the Sylvari, they kind of feel balanced between kind of, they're not just one-dimensional. It's not just, this is the race that likes to kill things. You know, there seems to be more to them, which is good. And
well,
also,
that was kind of surprising with the Sylvari, because they're like obviously nature, so you know they protect life at all costs and whatever. Yet during the story quest, like the personal story quest I was doing at the time, it was like, we'll go and kill him. I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to be looking after nature, but quite clearly I'm getting told to go and, like, my character's even suggesting, let's go and wipe them out. It's like, well, so it's not so set in stone, but you are right in saying, like, things like the chart, you know, you can compare it to things like the Orc race in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, where it's just like, it's your typical fantasy warfare race that is like, at some point it's been oppressed and now it's just killing everybody because that's what it does and that's all it'll ever do. And it's like, I think that's more appealing to maybe a younger gamer. To us now, because we're older, I mean, if you think about it, when we first started playing World of Warcraft, you know, and EverQuest 2 and games like that, I mean, when I played EverQuest 2, I played as a troll and a barbarian. Again, the same type of thing. You know, they're both warfare races, you know, they're just involved in war all the time. You know, I wouldn't necessarily play something like an elf or whatever, because I didn't really care. It's like, well, why do I want to be some tree hugger? Go away. But now, I look at it a bit differently, and it's like, I'm not necessarily drawn to just the You know, I mean, for fuck's sake, what race did I play the most in World of Warcraft? Orc. You know.
Yeah.
I played Undead a bit, but mostly it was Orc warriors and shit like that, and it's like.
The only reason I stopped playing my Orc was just because you couldn't have an Orc Paladin. If you could, I would have had one because it was just.
This is kind of making me want to go and mess about in World of Warcraft again.
No, it's not. Leave it.
No. So,
No.
moving on hastily. The world design itself in the game is quite good. I mean, when I listen back to myself on these recordings and I hear myself saying fantastic, it sounds well cheesy, but it quite literally is. I don't really think there's anything else in the MMO genre which is really the same in terms of design. World of Warcraft is obviously quite... It's stylised, but there is a lot of detail in most of the WoW environments. But Guild Wars 2 is like graphically high end, but also, you know, there's a lot of attention to detail, and it really looks quite nice, and that's like... If anything, it's really at the top of its game for that alone, you know, regardless of gameplay and stuff like that. Now, people might argue and say, well, Terra, Stylosa, and other games like that, they look great. They do, but they're kind of the same thing in every single game. They're pushed across all these Korean MMOs, you know, Aeon, Terra. It's the same engine, basically.
There's also, with games like that, there tends to be like a similarity in design. It's like, it might be visually impressive, but you'd be, you know, to the person looking in.
This is a good point you've raised, because I am not necessarily a fan of the Asian design of games, right? I don't really like the way they look. Now, you'd be an idiot if you tried to suggest that Guild Wars 2 does not have any Asian influence, because it quite clearly does. But it's like...
Human male.
yeah, it's quite... It's sort of like Western meets Eastern to a point, but it's more heavily Eastern influenced. Now, what you were saying about the males, now this is a bit of an irritating problem to me. Not including the Norn male, because he just looks a bit stupid, because he looks out of proportion. Although he is massive, but he really does look out of proportion, like arms and legs too big and all that stuff. And runs really awkward. The other races, the males, look like females. Now, I'm not saying I want to be some muscle-bound crazy in every game I play, you know, from a male character, but the males, they look really feminine. And I don't necessarily play female characters. Now, I know you've played female characters quite a bit in the past, Kiri, but I'm not really. I'm like, no, I want to play a male. The problem is, not including, well, like I said, the Norn or the Azura, because they're not even things. They're just like little creatures. They're not people. I would generally, in this game, well, not even generally, I would definitely play a female over a male, because they look like females. Males look like ladyboys.
See, the way I've always looked at it is, for a start, the
hang on, let me correct myself again. Also, Char as well, because they're a crazy animal.
Oh yeah, well, you can sort. It doesn't really matter with Char either way, does it?
Char female looks like a deer.
It does actually. That puts off the female, because the male looks like either a lion or a wolf or something crazy, and the female looks like it's got a deer's face,
Bambi,
with like massive horns, which is just a bit odd. But it's like the way I tend to approach characters in MMOs especially, and in like role-playing games a lot as well, is I don't tend to treat the character as myself. I know some people, when they pick a character, it's like, this is not the character, this is me. It's just a different way of playing the game. But I've always just gone for, this is the character, I'm just controlling it. And it's a lot easier. If I pick a male character, I sort of want to try and make it like me. But you can't. There's no game, I don't think, in which you can just make yourself to the point where you feel like it's you in the game. So I don't even try, and the easiest way to get away from it is to play a female character. I did it in Dragon Age, I did it in Mass Effect. It's like, if I try and play a male character, I end up trying to create myself, and I just can't do it. So I've always gone for female characters. I mean, my Blood Elf Paladin started out male, but it did my head in because his casting animations were crap, and I didn't like the way he looked because he was male. But as soon as I switched to female, it just became a non-issue. It was like, it's not, you know, it's a different thing to me. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't know why it is I go for that, but I think it's just a case of, I find it easier to play the game as someone else as opposed to trying to make myself in the game. And with Guild Wars 2, it's made a lot easier because the human males look like the females. The Norn males look like they've had some sort of horrendous surgery on their arms and legs. and I don't even know what the Sylvari males are supposed to be. I kind of, at first I was like, oh, they look alright, and then I thought, no. Compared to the females, just no.
But I think we're safe in saying, as two male gamers in our mid-20s, that the female characters in this game do actually look quite nice, but the fucking males, no, I can't, unless it's something that isn't a humanoid character, then yeah. Like what Kiri said with the way he approaches the characters, I'm sort of kind of the opposite way around, but I'm sort of converting to this idea of that's my character. Whereas before it was like, that's me. Well, it's not me, but that's my representation in the game. You know, so I want a male character. I'm not a female. I'm not running around as some woman. But now it's like I'm getting a bit like... I mean, as far as Guild Wars 2 goes, most of it probably does come down to the fact I don't really like the male characters. So it's like, well, I may as well play a female. But whatever. Let's move on. So let's move on. Another quite interesting thing is that there seems to be quite like a high... like amount of skill involved in the game, even at early levels. Like, I mean, when you first start the game, you go through, like, every race has the same start to a point where you fight like a boss straight away. You know, like I'd say mini boss, but it's generally like 10 times the size of the screen. But it involves you moving out of the way of basically not standing in the fire. But it's telling you this at level 1. You know, it's like, look, do not stand in this, you will die. And you do die. I mean, I was dead. At level 1 on the floor, I'm dead. I'm like, this is quite embarrassing. You know, I've played MMOs, I've been a raid leader, you know, all this kind of shit. I've been a main tank for years and years, and now I'm dead at level 1. Oh, this is bad. What's happened to me? Right. But that's good in a way, because it's starting to teach people how to play the game at a really early level. Also, like, the dodging mechanic in the game allows you to sort of take on monsters that are really high in level. I mean, at one point, I think I was level 4, and I was killing level 8, level 7 and level 8 monsters quite easily. And it was taking me some time to kill them. This was with my Sylvari Thief. But because I was so mobile, and because I was dodging every time they were launching an attack, they couldn't hit me, but I could keep hitting them, and eventually I'd kill them. Now, I really like that type of gameplay. Now, I'm not saying that's exclusive to Guild Wars 2 only, because it's not. You know, this sort of extends to practically every other MMO, really. But the main difference is with Guild Wars 2, because of the skills system, it's not like come level 3 or 4, depending on what weapon set you've been using, you've already unlocked all your main abilities. Okay, you don't have your secondary abilities yet, because you get a lot of them off your talents and whatnot. But you've already unlocked your core abilities, so it's then just up to you to get better with them. You know, I know by changing the weapons you get different abilities and such. But in a game like WoW, you're sort of waiting for level 6 or level 8 when I get my lay on hands, or when I get my, you know, my bubble as a paladin or whatever. You know, you're sort of waiting for that moment where you become a lot more effective, whereas in this game, it seems to be more of a case of, if you are generally a better player, you can sort of advance faster than a worse player, which I do like that. I do like that concept of like ability and skill.
Also, I think in combination with the fact that very early on, you are forced to learn that if you don't move, you'll die, which will hopefully sort of make people take that into normal situations, because dodging out of the way of the boss's attacks is all very well, but with any luck, people will start to realise, hey, if I can dodge out of the boss's way and survive the entire fight, then surely I can go after these 4 mobs, and if I dodge, I can kill them before they kill me, which should hopefully mean that when you come to sort of end game or late game, the number of players who are, let's face it, not quite as quick reaction as, you know, other players will, you know, they'll learn, and it won't be a case if you're there in your raid, sort of late game, and find that there's the one guy who does not know what the dodge button is for yet, because the entire game is teaching you that if you dodge, if you play well, if you actually concentrate on what's going on, you will advance quicker and you'll do better, and hopefully it'll make people just better players overall, but not to, you know, it won't punish you as such, but it'll teach you how to play it properly. Because if you want to play Guild Wars...
Son, I never know when you're going to stop talking. You go quiet and then you do me with I'll just talk again. So, this leads us actually onto another point which is quite interesting. Now, this is talking more about the negatives of the game. Because, you know, the game is brilliant, but there's also, obviously, for every positive, there's generally a negative. And this is one that you've just highlighted, which is not having the fabled holy trinity of tank, healer and DPS. This kind of poses a bit of a problem. Now, from what you've just explained, which was good and correct, like, you know, the game is teaching you to be a better player as you level up. It's teaching you to look after yourself. In Guild Wars 2, you are generally, basically you're in charge of your own life, right? If you don't get out of the way, you die. You know, if you don't heal yourself, you die. Now, admittedly, classes can heal you, they can offer you protection and such, but it's not to the extent of your typical MMO. It's not where the tank takes all the damage, the healer heals everybody. No. It's like everybody is a tank, everybody is a healer. And if you're in a group situation, let's say you're doing a public quest, which this again is another negative to do with public quests we'll get onto in a minute. But if you're doing a public quest, you have got to make sure you do not get hit by that giant's massive club. Yeah, you might be a guardian, you might have heavy armor, you might be a warrior, but if you get hit by the club, you're going to die. So you need to get out of the way. You need to dodge. If you take damage, you need to use your self-heal abilities, because if you don't, it's very unlikely you're going to actually get healed back up to full by anybody else, because the heals tend to be quite low. Now obviously, you know, I've only got experience with lower levels, but even at like level 30 and such, the healing ability of other characters was very low. Like, it wasn't like they could instantly heal you back to full, or they could offer you shitloads of protection. It's down to you to keep yourself alive, which, I mean, hats off to him for getting rid of the Holy Trinity in that type of fashion, but I don't know whether this is actually a good change or not, because I am... Now, I was going to say I'm like an old school MMO player, but that's not really fair to the people who played EverQuest and Ultima Online and all the rest of that. I mean, I only played EverQuest 2, so, well, to any extent, like completely through the end game and raiding and all that stuff. I was a tank. Now, a tank is, like, again, this was something me and Kiri were discussing before we went live with this. It's certain personalities fit into certain classes. I like to lead and be in charge, so I like to be a tank, right? The more thoughtful, you know, methodical player, like Kirioth, likes to be a healer. You know, they're looking after people, making sure everything's still running. The crazy bastard who likes to spam buttons and is hyperactive is generally DPS, yeah. But now with Guild Wars 2, it's sort of everybody's DPS. But everybody's also got to look after themselves. And I think there's going to be like some really bad situations where if you're attempting to do group content and stuff like that, and people are literally incapable of moving out of the fire, of, you know, looking after themselves, it's going to be quite frustrating. Because no longer is it going to be a case of I'm the tank, so I can make sure everything's going to attack me. Kirioth's the healer, he can make sure everybody's going to stay alive. It's sort of like, no, it's up to you to keep yourself alive. And that's like frightening to me. It is frightening as hell. I'm like, whoa.
I think as well, it's not just going to be a case of, I mean, we could easily sit here and say we'll be fine because we have, you know, been a tank or have been a healer, and the DPS has always relied on us, so it's going to be the DPS that causes the problems because they won't move out of the fire because they seem to have forgotten that we can't just keep them up. But actually, I'm going to find it tricky to stay alive because, to be perfectly honest, my healing experience came from WoW. I was a paladin healer, and I could keep the entire group up absolutely fine, safe in the knowledge that if things go bad, I can click a button and become like invulnerable for a couple of seconds, or click lay on hands and just be, you know, back up to full. There is no button for that that I've found in Guild Wars 2. So it's like I could be sitting there, you know, trying to help other people by, you know, dodging around, or if I'm playing a class with a heal, trying to keep other people up, and then suddenly find myself just dead because I've been focusing too much on others and not myself. And it could be the same for people who are used to playing tanks as well. You know, you might find yourself falling back into that thing of, well, I need to keep the damage on me, when actually everyone should be taking the same amount of damage, which is nothing.
I did. I would, like, I almost instantly reverted back to this. This was at the previous beta weekend. So I'm playing my Guardian. You could argue a tank class. Well, at least that's what I thought. It would be more tanky than it actually was. Straight away, I wanted to go into combat first. I wanted to, you know, make things attack me. But of course, there's no taunt. Well, he's got no taunt, so it's like you can't, you know, I can't make the monster attack me. But it was always, and it was getting a bit like, oh my god, I don't know what to do with myself, and it was a bit strange. But moving on to talk about the public quests, which is the next thing. Well, I've got a bit of an issue with. While they are fantastic and great in the sense of Well, in case anybody doesn't know, in Guild Wars 2, the way you complete a quest is like a general quest, not a story quest. They're a bit different. Is you literally go to that area in the world and you just take part in the quest. Right? You don't have to accept the quest. You don't have to, have a look at your quest journal, all this crap. It's just you go to that area, you do that quest. Now every quest is public, so other people can help you do the quest. Yeah. Which is great on paper because it means everybody's taking part in all these big quests. You could say it's really social, but here's the thing: it's not. It's not social at all because at no point do you even need to use the communication. You don't have to talk to anybody and say, "Let's do this quest." You're just there. There's other people there. You do the quest, you get the reward, you leave, and it's like there is no chat. It's sort of made the game more social yet anti-social at the same time. It's a bit weird. It's like I'm not like, I mean, okay, if I wanted to do a public quest and it was a difficult one, I might start asking people in the zone, okay guys, do you want to come and do this? But for the majority, I mean, I can absolutely guarantee when the game goes live, you won't really be talking to people beyond your friends in the immediate vicinity to complete quests because it's just irrelevant. It's just totally irrelevant. It's like you just turn up and do the quest. And that's a bit frightening to me again, because it's like I do like the social aspect of MMOs of old. I don't just want everything given to me because I'm literally there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is it sort of, some ways it kind of feels like they're giving with one hand and taking away with the other, because you've got the whole thing of teaching players how to play, but then you've got the other aspect of the public quest, which, as you say, is they're social, but you can do them in a completely antisocial way. So you can end up with players that by the end of the game know what they're doing, but have spent the entire game completely ignoring everyone around them. So when it comes to a situation where communication's actually needed, they're like, oh well, I can play, so it's fine. And as a result, the group wipes or the raid dies because half the people there are so used to doing these public quests without actually interacting with the public that they just ignore you and carry on doing their own thing. And it's a bit of a weird way of doing it, I think. It's good, but it's going to be interesting to see how it affects players as a whole, really.
That's quite interesting as well with the scaling point that you brought up. Do you remember the shaman in the Char area where there was about 100 people attacking him?
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah. So the event scales up. The problem with this is if you get these big open world bosses, let's just say raid bosses. Me and Kirioth could just be walking by. We've got no coordination at all. Yet we can just take part in the attack on this monster and most likely get some type of reward. Yet we haven't really done anything. We're not part of a raid. We are, but we're not. We're not part of that bigger social aspect that is the raid, because the raid itself doesn't really exist. It's just a lot of people in the same area at the same time. It's strange.
I'd say there is kind of a hope for it though, even though the communication might not be that good. And I remember that shaman fight that went on for God knows how long. And I was at quite a low level, and I wasn't really high enough to even affect the fight because I got within about 5 feet and I died instantly. And so I was sort of relegated to the back. And all I could do was fire my crappy gun off and res people. But on the other hand, I noticed there were quite a few other people doing the same thing. So although there was no communication, because no one was talking, everyone was too busy,
sort of adapting as they go. Oh, that's interesting.
It was just a case of I can't do much else, but I know I can res because I'm out of visibility range. So if I saw someone die, I'd help them back up. And I realised after a couple of minutes of doing this that I was not the only one. There were people of my level who we'd not communicated, we'd not said, okay, everyone below this level do this. It's like people had sort of thought to themselves, I'm not doing any damage, but I'm getting killed. I need to stay out of range. What can I do out of range? Oh, I can res people who've already died. And so I suppose there is hope for it, because it might hopefully be that people will adapt, sort of almost like a hive mind thing. Enough people of this in a similar situation will think we need to do something that's going to be helpful without dying ourselves.
I suppose the critical thing as well, this was at a very early level as well. This is in the first Char zone, so it is sort of teaching these players from the get-go, this is how you do this. So I think, it's going to be very interesting watching it develop, I think that's for sure. But I think wrapping this up, Mr. Kirioth, we're most definitely looking forward to Guild Wars 2. I generally don't really get that hyped about games as much as I used to. I think it's probably to do with my current profession and age. Yeah, but I really used to be like, oh god, this game's coming out, it's going to be amazing. I am starting to feel like that now about Guild Wars 2. I've had my tasters from the beta weekends, but now I want to play the game, and I really can't wait to get, I want to play the game. And obviously the game launches the 28th of August, so it's not that far off, but it's definitely going to be a brilliant game. But how the game develops is most definitely going to be quite interesting, Mr. Kirioth.
It's going to be like a massive social experiment.
Good
It's
lord.
going to be quality.
So make sure you subscribe to Unit Lost Tube, because we're the fucking best, and you damn right know that. I mean, I shouldn't even be telling them this, should I? They should just know. They should be like, good lord, I'm subscribing. I'm subscribed, but I'll subscribe again, even though it's impossible.
Make a second account, subscribe. Oh no, no.
Make a third account, yeah. Make loads of accounts, love it. Yeah, and click the links in the description. We'll catch you next time, people. Toodaloo.